We're going to start by sowing moringa, castor, some corn. We're going to succession sow and just see what does well. All right, now at this point, I'm going to be sticking in the first of our major succession species. So we got some macadamia nuts. We're going to be planting those macadamia nuts within the tree line. And we want to do it in a guild. It's pretty common for permaculture practices, but we're going to be using it here as well. They kind of go hand in hand. And so we want to clear out some space so we can sow all the seeds. So we want a mixture between short-term and long-term species. So for short-term, we have things like cowpea, corn, and things like that. And then we also have cassia lata, which is your candlestick plant. So we're going to set our macadamia nut on the east side of our little hole that we've made. We're going to start sticking everything else in there as well. And so we also have sunflower. That's not going to be going directly next to the plant. We're going to start varying what types that we put in. So for this, we got to think about when it sprouts, the caliper of the tree, and how easy it would be to cut down the annual crops around it. So you got to think about succession going outward. So our macadamia nut is here. And so we want to do moringa to the left or right. So we're going to do 3 seeds in each hole that we're going to make. So we have maximum possibility. If we do an overage, I'll do 4 or 5. I'm doing that to the left and right as overstory shade and the start of that emergent layer. I'm just going to plant them within a few inches of each other. Once again, they could always be thinned out, and they may not even take this time. And I'll just plant more. And so these are going to go on the other side. Just cover with a little bit of loose soil. And then we have our corn. It's going to be the immediate shade as well as kind of a nitrogen fixer. So this is a mix of a bunch of different seeds. So I'm going to I want maximum possibility of germination. So I'm going to put 3 in each hole once again. I don't care about the variety. I just want corn, and I want sugars being pumped into the soil. And I'm doing that on the western side. So I want maximum shade for the young seedling as it grows. I'll do another 3 on the other side. I'm only expecting about maybe a 10% germination. So I got those covered up. And then over here on the pure western exposure, it's really good for creating microclimate as well as shade and stabilizing soils and starting the process is castor. So I'm going to plant 3 seeds each hole. And I'm just going basically fingernail depth on all these holes. There's plenty of mulch around. You don't have to be exact for all of this, and it's going to be varying depths for each fingerprint that I make. We're all about making things easy. We don't want it to be an exact science because then we're wasting time, and time is precious. All right, so we got that. We don't want that cash to be right up on it because it does develop a little bit of a caliper initially, and we want to avoid dealing with that. We want that to be at least 2 or 3 years in the system. And then also for starting the life, in that hole that I've made around the macadamia, we're going to use beet seeds. And so we're going to plant those a little bit closer. And I'm not super worried about harvesting these. If anything, I want it for seed because if it grows here, I want to keep it and keep keep those seeds. So I'm not expecting all these to make it. I want the seeds that survive are the ones that like my soil that I'm working with. And then over by where I'm planting the casters, I'm going to put my cowpea because it does have the tendency to vine. And I don't necessarily care as much about the castor. And these usually require a little bit hotter weather. I have such a copious amount of them that I'm not afraid if I accidentally planted too many of them and they all die. They do reseed readily, and so I'm not super concerned. All right. And then on this eastern exposure, I'm going to put pigeon pea. Now that I have everything filled in, I just want to make sure I take some loose material. If you have some twiggy stuff like this, you can break it up. I just want to make sure that we're getting some sort of cover in there that'll retain the moisture. The seeds will pop up through it. If you have crushed up leaves, that works best. I'm just going to make it as fine as I can, but I'm only doing about an inch of fluffy cover over each hole. So that way the plants can push up and through it as they please. I'm going to repeat the process with the macadamia trees 2 more times. I do plant them in their husks, so same thing with mangoes, so that way they can pop through when conditions are right for them. You have a lot less risk of pestilence as well as fungal and bacterial disease whenever you plant it that way. You could soak these to help them sprout, but this is flood irrigation, so that should be plenty, as well as we still have water in the ground with the mulched area at least about a week after irrigating, so I'm not worried about it. And as he irrigates more during the summer, it'll just stay that much wetter. We won't be losing as much to evaporation because of the mulch.